afternoon, and welcome to Focus on the Four Corners. I'm your host, Deborah Malayu, and joining me today are Marie and James Strickler and Ann Campbell, and we're going to have a great talk today. Thank you so much for being here, all of you.
We're delighted.
Great. So, I want to just start off with Marie, having you tell us a little bit about why you're here and, what the topic at hand is.
Well, we're here actually to promote an online event that we're doing this year. We're bringing on Kevin Dunn, who is a Canadian producer that I met 2 years ago when I went to a euthanasia conference. They presented his award-winning documentary, Fatal Flaws. I was very impressed with the documentary, and even more impressed with Kevin. He's very personable, very sincere advocate for life and for the dignity of human life. So I wanted to bring him in. That was 2 years ago for our San Juan County Right to Life event. However, in the meantime, all the stuff with Epstein came to the surface, and we decided that we would go in the direction of addressing child trafficking.
Right, and just in case folks don't know, when you say Epstein, you mean Jeffrey Epstein
yes.
and his
connections to New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we had a speaker come in that addressed child trafficking, and that was really good. But I still had Kevin in the back of my mind, and this year we approached him thinking we'd have our normal dinner, but of course the COVID and all the regulations kind of prevented that.
Right, you can't have more than 10 people together right now in a gathering.
So as Providence would have it, Kevin is an award-winning producer, and he offered to do a production for us to use online, and that's what we're going to do this year.
Great. So is he going to be talking live, or are you going to be watching a video?
It will be a little bit of both.
Okay.
It'll be pre-recorded, but he's going to interact with people from our state.
And this is the San Juan Right to Life, yes?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. We're the ones that are putting the event on, but the whole state will benefit this time. And so we brought in figures from around the state to speak with Kevin. One is Vince Torres, who is, he's the president of Family Policy Alliance of New Mexico, and he's going to discuss some of the legislation that we should all be aware of. And Ethel Murtaugh, who is the director of Right to Life Committee of New Mexico. And then we're going to bring in some other people to discuss new things that Right to Life has come up with, one of them being a wonderful contest, a video contest for youth where they can win $1,500 or $250 for producing their own little video that's pro-life. And that's all going to be discussed at this event. It's going to be on September 25th, Friday. It's an online thing, and people, if they register online at our website, San Juan County Right to Life.org, so it's SJCRTL.org, go on and register. Then they'll be sent little emails to remind them of the event, when it is, and how to log on. They can also, if they choose to host a little dinner at their home, they can put together, say, 2 other couples or 4 people at their home, then they can get in on a little catering thing that Bernadone's has offered to do for that event.
So if you host a table, then you go to Bernadone's and pick up a catered dinner for 5. Because legally we're not supposed to have more than 5 people per dinner. So, But it'll be amp, it'll probably be enough for 6.
Yeah.
You know how their servings are.
But they have to sign on as a host, and their people have to have registered as guests. So,
and the point of the registration is to get everyone's name in there, plus their email, plus their address and phone number.
So we can let them know about other events, and also let them know about legislation and so forth that comes up through the year.
So, and this... So is there a cost for this thing if you're doing a dinner?
It is absolutely free. The dinner that has to do with your hosting the event, but the event itself is absolutely free, and anyone can log on and watch the event.
And then if you're doing the dinner, do you call Bernardoni's and then they give you the price of what that is?
Or? You would have to call us, and the number for that is 505-320-2906. And they would call us after they had registered as a host and had their guest register.
And that's all online too. It's very clearly stated online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what about, we have a lot of listeners that are older and not necessarily online. What can they do? Folks who don't go online.
You know what? If they call this same number and leave a message and say they need help with registering, we can help them through that process. So let me give you that number again. It's 505-320-2906, and do leave a message because that phone collects a lot of solicitors, and we don't answer those. If they don't leave a message, we don't usually respond to the number.
And you need to be registered by the 20th. Is that correct?
No, they have to have their name in as a host and their guests as guests by the 18th of September if they want to do any kind of dinner.
The Friday before.
Right, the Friday before. However, they can log on to watch the presentation right up to the moment before the event.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Okay. And so when you said that there's you mentioned some folks from New Mexico. Those folks are going to be talking, and then Kevin will also be talking.
He'll actually be interacting with some of them.
Okay.
And then our local guy, Brian Seiss, who's really been the key person putting a lot of this together. He'll be he's our tech guy. He is going to be online too a little bit. It should be very entertaining. The information that Kevin shares is wonderful and very eye-opening. He's going to show what, when we get on this slippery slope with looking at people in terms of, their usefulness or whatever, the convenience of having them around, then we start a downward plunge into just killing off anybody who's not convenient.
Yeah, and you said you had a good comment there. You said whether or not they're essential, and we're hearing a lot. That's a catchphrase today. Essential workers, essential employees. Who's essential? Who's not essential? Yeah, and so that makes me think that this is something that's going to stick.
Well, it did stick during Nazi Germany. When you watch Schindler's List again, oh, please, you guys, watch it again. When they're all in line and they're finding out, are you a miller, or are you can you work with your hands, or can you make, bullets, whatever the case is, metal, and consequently they lied so that they could save their lives. But it just boing, a boom went into my head. They said, are you considered an essential or a non-essential worker? It was so spooky.
Mm-hmm.
And now that word is coming back up into our society. Essential.
Right.
But he also speaks so intensely about verbiage, because the verbiage, for instance, these are some of the catchwords for what's going on with mercy killing. Do you want?
Oh yeah, no, please.
That? Okay, so you have death with dignity. Of course, when there is a polling, people would rather vote for death with dignity than assisted suicide. So of course you're going to choose death with dignity.
But that is assisted suicide.
Right.
Yes.
Well, then I'm going to explain the difference between assisted suicide and euthanasia. Then there's doctored assisted death, and then there's medical aid in dying, and then there's
that sounds like hospice.
Oh yes. Well, no. That's another whole scenario. Then suicide with help, or as some doctors consider themselves now that they legally can kill someone, it's called the ultimate help.
The ultimate help.
Now, the difference between euthanasia and assisted suicide, or euthanasia is injection by the physician, Kevorkian. Assisted suicide is you say, okay, I want to die,
Give me the pills.
Right. Now, James, wasn't there legislation in the legislature recently, a bill that was going to promote assisted suicide, so much so that even a teenager could go into the doctor and say, I don't want to live anymore, and that doctor would have to, by law, help that teenager commit suicide.
That's my understanding, Deborah. It's an Oregon, state of Oregon type of assisted suicide bill. The proponents were using that as a model, and the bill was, I think it was House Bill 90.
171, I think.
Well, and I forget the exact bill number.
That's fine.
But the proponent who was carrying the bill got it through the committees, the House committees. This is in 2019, the 2019 session, and she's this Deborah Armstrong out of Albuquerque, and she is a occupational therapist attorney. She's very, very smart lady, and she's on the health committee, and she was promoting the bill. Ironically, her daughter, I believe Erin, suffered from cancer. And has been battling cancer since she was a teenager. And she had to drop everything and take care of her daughter, which I'm so thankful for. And her daughter pulled through. So it's kind of ironic she was pushing assisted suicide. And her daughter was fighting for her life, which is wonderful. A lot of prayers went up for her, and I think she's making a comeback. It was a serious form of cancer. So that bill was dropped because she was not able to carry it. And then they had the life bill, House Bill 50.
Right.
If you want to visit.
Oh yeah, I would love to.
51.
One of the things I want to ask you about, though, is this assisted suicide bill that was moving through the legislature and didn't make it through. That's something that we probably can expect to see again, though, right? Because
Absolutely.
these are issues that Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham supports. She likes them. I'd say they're close to her heart, and she seems to like death. And she lives in the culture of death, and she promotes that. And so she has people who she works with who promote this.
Well,
yes.
Let's talk about why.
Yes, we talk about essential. What's essential? The abortion clinics in New Mexico were considered essential during this shutdown. So she does pick winners and losers. That's for sure.
Right.
And you're exactly right. It will come back. We lost 5 very, very dear and wonderful Democrat senators that were defeated in the primary that were pro-life. So
see, and that's what I'm worried about.
There's not much room in the Democratic Party anymore. The pro-life Democrats are being pushed out, which is sad because we need that bipartisan help from those really good people, and
right.
I'm sad to see them go.
I know, and that's what worries me as well, is that we've lost those pro-life Democrats, and I think that we lost them because of the fact that they voted against those bills, and then we saw the party swarm and say, okay, we got to get these guys out of here. But anyway, we also have to take a quick break, so we'll take a quick break, and we get back, we'll talk more about life issues. So keep it right here on Focus on the Four Corners. Hey, Four Corners. Good afternoon and welcome back to Focus on the Four Corners. I'm your host, Deborah Moyu. Joining me today are James and Marie Strickler and Ann Campbell, and we are talking about pro-life and right to life, and we just got done talking about the assisted suicide bill. And I know, Marie, you want to talk a little bit about why the Democratic Party and specifically our governor seems to be so in favor of that type of legislation.
Well, it really boils down to money. Okay, so the abortion industry is a huge moneymaker. They give lots and lots of money to any politicians that will support them. And it will be the same with assisted suicide, because if you can get rid of people who are top heavy or causing a drain on the medical system, insurance companies are going to get behind that. So it really boils down to who's gonna support my campaign, who's gonna carry me through, and it'll be these industries that are pouring money into the legislation, into the legislative process. I really want to applaud these Democrat representatives. They were all senators in New Mexico that stepped across the aisle and joined the Republicans in fighting this. It took great courage. It's a lot harder to stand against your own party. And this was Campos in District 8, Cisneros in District 6, Martinez in District 5, Munoz in District 4, Sanchez in District 30, and Ramos in District 28. They were very brave men to do that.
And John Arthur Smith also.
And the party did go after them after they did it.
Yeah, and
so
and you mentioned it, James. I mean, it's so ridiculous to me that we have abortion as an essential health procedure. You have people who can't walk because they need knee replacements or hip replacements, and they can't get that surgery, but we can keep our abortions going, and not just abortions, but late-term abortions as well, because Albuquerque is like the late-term abortion capital of the world, right?
You need those body parts.
That is right, and I also want to mention Mary Kay Papin, too, out of Las Cruces. She was another pro-life, a pro-life Democrat.
They all lose.
And 6 of them did.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
And Ann was talking about terminology. So when we started with the abortion issue, it was supposed to be safe, legal, and rare. And we can see now that it's not safe. You can watch the Gosnell movie and know that. He actually literally murdered several infants that were born alive. And women died in his clinic because it was filthy, and he didn't use good medical practices. There were bills brought up. I believe Bill Scherer brought up a bill to try to hold abortion clinics to the same medical standards as any other medical facility, and it was shut down.
Well, and there was the bill in Texas, and it's in several other states as well, that said that doctors who practice at abortion clinics have to have hospital privileges.
Right.
And that went through, and then the Supreme Court shot that down.
Right.
So
there's a lot of money behind this industry,
Yeah. So basically, there's nothing we can do about it except for, there is something that people can do about it. They can vote for Trump, and when Ginsburg finally drops dead,
Or she could be.
He will appoint a new Supreme Court justice.
Well, and that's really what HB 51 was all about.
Right.
HB 51 was to get rid of what they called an antiquated law on our books. Well, that antiquated law would come into play if Roe versus Wade was shut down, which is what the abortion industry fears. Okay, if that's shut down, that old law comes into place, and it's far more conservative.
The old law in New Mexico.
The old law in New Mexico would come back into play, and it allows abortion, but only under certain circumstances.
Right, but HB 51 went further than most bills, and it even allowed more abortions. I think it was late term, and then also born alive abortions.
Right.
Is that right, James?
Well, it really was. The Supreme Court really dictates the current abortion practice and its permittability
since Roe versus Wade.
Right. And so it was a more common sense restrictive, and they just want to strip that. So, by repealing that old law in the books, it would go back to the current practice, which you can abort a baby up until birth. Mm-hmm. And that's why we do have a late-term abortion facility in Albuquerque, mm-hmm. And it's really sad.
Yeah, it is. It's really sad.
Southwest Women's Health Center.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound innocuous?
It does.
Let's just get off our plane, make a phone call. It's called room service abortions.
Who actually was caught selling baby body parts to UNM Health and Science Department for research. So I mean, they're making money coming and going with this.
Well, and I don't know if you saw this or not. And this is, I think, partially where we're heading. And please, I don't have any proof of this at all that this is where we're heading, but it would seem to me that this is where we're heading. We have a Nordic country, I can't remember if it's Switzerland or Sweden, that is actually growing humans in a lab for consumption.
Oh,
and
I
then
haven't heard that.
yeah, and it's true. And then there was a recent rally for AOC in New York, and there was a woman who was of Nordic descent who was wearing a T-shirt that said "Eat the babies,"
Oh, yeah.
and she went crazy. They had to actually remove her from the rally because she was saying that people that we needed to abort all babies and eat them and make them a food source. So this is really, really sickening. It's disgusting, but it seems that this is where a lot of the liberal thought is heading, and it just makes me sick.
Well, it's the blood, the baby's blood that they're, what's the name of that blood? What's it called? You know what it's called.
Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome.
That's already been being sold in California as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
The adrenochrome. So where do they get that from? Aborted babies
Mm-hmm.
and from children. I do think we have to get back to the idea.
Yeah, definitely.
Because with this Kevin Dunn, he has done extensive surgery. He has done extensively research on what's going on in our hospitals. We have 5 states now that are completely for pro-assisted suicide. And then there are companies and facilities that, for instance, in Canada, that are end-of-life places that if you have been told no, you cannot get an assisted suicide permission, then you can go to these end-of-life places, and they have to only have 2 doctors that approve. And if you're depressed, that's not, it's depressing. If they have the symptoms of depression, then they can still use death as an option to resolving that scenario.
And think of all the profit that the insurance companies make if they can get people just to check out,
Well, that's why it's so rampant in hospitals.
But the danger is the slippery slope here. Right now it sounds just like the old saying, safe, legal, and rare, right? But what it's headed down to and what it will come to if you study where it's taken place anywhere else in the world, is eventually it won't be so much the right to die as the duty to die.
Well, and then there was the Right to Life dinner 2 years ago. Oh, I can't remember the fellow's name. He's a Catholic speaker, and he did a really interesting talk about how these 2 parents decided that their son was just too out of hand and they didn't want to raise him anymore, and so they just decided that they would kill him, and they would take him to the doctor, and the doctor would put a needle in his arm, and they would put him to sleep, and that's very likely that these
and once you
things can be headed there.
To make those
Patrick
decisions,
Madrid.
Right,
yeah.
Patrick Madrid. Thank you. Yes.
Once you allow a physician the right to make that decision and the family the right to push that decision or give them the medication, which has been done, all kinds of things can happen. I think the bottom line here again is terminology, just like Ann said, because what we're asking for is not the right to die. Everybody has the right to die. We're all going to die, whether we want to or not. What we don't have the right to do is to kill ourselves or anyone else. And so really what they're asking for is the right to kill, not the right to die. And if you put it in that perspective, you start to see it more clearly.
Well, they're giving that responsibility and authority to doctors, but doctors are to alleviate suffering, not be a vending machine when the patient can come and give you a rational argument that they're better off dead, or Or the family is pressuring them because they can't afford the health care anymore.
Mhm.
Or the health insurance is saying, no, we're not going to pay for it anymore.
And that is
or,
happening.
or you're
Yeah.
suffering. Do you know doctors will go into the room in the middle of the night and go up to a patient who is suffering and say, do you know how sick you are? And put a guilt trip on the patient because I can make you comfortable.
I was just going to say,
run.
if a doctor asks
Run.
you if you want to be made comfortable,
Say no.
And we actually know of
Many
cases
cases.
where someone has gone into the hospital and they're older and they may not be, as you said, essential, quote unquote, and they might have a broken leg or have been in a car accident and they're going to survive. They just aren't in that great a shape at the moment, but they need medical care to survive.
And vulnerable.
And the doctor will say, I'm going to make you comfortable. Well,
Yeah.
then that means they're going to
Give you a double dose.
make you have a double dose so you can be comfortable and go to sleep forever, and that's scary.
Already, many insurance companies are covering end-of-life drugs, but they are, and by that I mean helping the end of life happen, and they're denying life-saving surgeries and so forth because it's better on their books. So, the same thing that the abortion industry is now doing with our representatives and so forth, undergirding and supporting them financially to move a certain direction, the insurance agencies are going to start doing exactly the same thing. And Lord help us if we get universal care where we only have a one-payer system and the government's making those decisions, because I can promise you it won't be the decision people will want.
Well, and those laws are expanding also to psychiatric disorders, to Alzheimer's disease, to advanced Alzheimer's disease, to diabetes. That's
Wow.
one of the reasons you could kill yourself.
Well,
the morally and ethically, we're really at a tough spot because they're trying to water down what for 5,000 years, human history, life was precious. Now, granted, in the Roman days, life wasn't so precious there in those days.
right.
And that's where you had the fall and rise of the Roman Empire, and we don't want to do that. And the life issues. As a state representative, I'm concerned about this government shutdown and all the people that have lost their jobs. New Mexico has a high unemployment rate, much higher than our neighbors.
Right.
We're not New York or the state of California. We're a small state of 2,095,000 people, and people are unfortunately with a high unemployment rate. Premature deaths are on the rise, and we're talking about drugs and alcohols and suicide, and it's just awful what's going on out there. And then you pile this on top of that, and every 1% of unemployment nationwide, you lose 30,000 people.
Wow.
And we now know that this Chinese flu, the Wuhan flu, they post 180,000 plus deaths to this virus. In actuality, only 6% of that total is truly 100% the Wuhan flu.
Right.
The rest of those folks had serious underlying health issues.
So those doctors that we heard in the very beginning from California who were saying that the death rate was 0.0002%, and they shut him down, and they took him off YouTube, and they took him off Facebook, and they took him off Twitter, and they wouldn't let him speak anymore. We know now that they were right. And so on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more on Focus on the Four Corners right after this. Afternoon and welcome back to Focus on the Four Corners. I'm your host, Deborah Mayu, and joining me today are James and Marie Strickler and Ann Campbell, and we're having a lively discussion about life
And death.
Yes.
Roll down together.
And it really is just a shame when we look at what's happening today, in our world and in our society, and America is kind of one of these last great nations that is still holding on to some conservative values and viewpoints, and we have a president who still loves life and who actually stands up for life and says things like all born and unborn children are made in the image of God and therefore have a right to life. And, maybe people need to really think about that.
Well, it's actually constitutional. I mean, one of our first rights is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So we've completely cut out our first right when we start deciding who we can kill and who we can't kill.
Right.
So death with dignity isn't. It doesn't make sense. I mean, what isn't death with dignity? Someone that can naturally die. And one doctor from Oregon who is pro-life, Dr. What's his name? You know what his name is? Trofler or something.
Okay.
And he said, my wife died 3.5 years ago, and she had her illness was 5 to 8 years, and they wanted to, he legally she could have died, but he said, wasn't it more dignified for her as a mother and a wife and a grandmother to die the way, with grace and naturally? He says, I consider that to be more dignified than to go and say, okay, I'm going to be dead in 48 hours, and let me get everything together, and it's my choice. It's my choice to kill myself.
I think Kevin Dunn addresses, too, the fact that most people would not even think about assisted suicide or anything like that if they felt loved and wanted and needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's lacking in our society. We isolate people and make them feel unloved, unwanted, and unneeded.
Well, and that's exactly what this virus has done. I mean, it's made people feel unwanted, unneeded, and in some cases unloved.
Unrecognized because they're wearing masks everywhere they go.
Yeah, the cure is worse than the disease. Yeah. A good friend of mine, Dr. Stephen Hotze, a medical doctor in Houston, you never quarantine healthy people.
Yes.
It's never been done in world history. This is just crazy. Our students, our grammar school and high school and college kids, the very little risk that they face. And we're just, this shotgun approach is really hurting not only our economy, but the depression and the stress and the domestic problems that occur when you can't pay your bills. So the cure is definitely worse than the disease. And this has never happened. We're in uncharted waters. Right. And again, this is a life issue. We want to make sure everybody can have a good job and pay their bills.
Right. Well, and you talk about schools. The schools were supposed to open this past week, or supposed to open this week.
Right.
And the governor came out and changed the rules 5 days beforehand. It wasn't the public education department. It was the governor. And I could have told everyone that was going to happen. In fact, I was saying that it was going to happen. And now they're saying, well, we'll go back to school on October 9th. I have my serious doubts that that's going to happen. There's going to be something else that the governor is going to find.
Nothing will happen until the elections.
To keep children out of school and at home. And part of that is because then parents can't work. And then, and then parents are at home trying to teach their kids, and it's their job to tutor their kids, but I mean, really, it's not their job to teach their kids unless they choose to homeschool their kids. And so it's really fascinating, and I find it even more fascinating, that we not only have the teaching ban, I mean, the school ban, we have the travel ban, we can't leave the state, or unless we come back, we have to quarantine for 14 days, and it's really
the mask
crazy.
The
mask fleece. Yes. Yes. I actually was visiting a business, and I won't even say what type of business so as not to get anyone in trouble recently. And I walked in and people were not wearing masks. And I said, thank you. I said, I'm going to take my mask off because I can't breathe with it on. And they said, well, we're a Patriot business. And I said, good for you. And then they said, but we got reported and we got fined. And I thought, really? How is this that people think that it's their job to go around and police everyone? It's very communist.
Yeah, well, that's what they used to encourage people to do that. Hitler encouraged people to tell on their neighbors.
And we have an anonymous hotline, right, James? They can call an anonymous hotline direct to the governor.
I haven't called it. So.
Well,
but because you're in government.
But the ruse for this death with dignity, it's dead wrong, because they really are promoting dignity, freedom, and compassion. And as Kevin Dunn traveled all over the country, he went to Amsterdam and the Netherlands, which is one of the meccas for this end-of-life scenario, and the legalization of assisted death. He said, these people, when they were interviewed, they were not suffering from pain. It was 2 out of 5 on the scale at their pain level.
Physical pain.
Physical pain. So, and pain can be mitigated. So people say, what if they're suffering? Blah blah blah. It's frequently the mindset that their life is not valuable. They're not a valued human being because they may be costing somebody money for their care. Or they're no longer essential. They're not productive. It's all about productiveness. And so that they have bought into that lie that just because they're lying there and maybe praying for someone for the rest of their life, which is the best thing you could possibly do, and not doing anything else, then they should die. Yeah. They should get on the dole.
This idea of there's no such thing as intractable pain with all the drugs, the modern day drugs that we have, and there's no, I want to say sin. There's no sin in giving a person enough medication to relieve their pain, but you don't do it, and it might speed up their death to some extent. But as long as your intention is not to kill that person, but they're talking about let's just get it over with, and they're playing God. They're playing God with the life of another person, or even a person playing God with their own life is. In my book, it's not a good thing. So, we're just headed down a really, really slippery slope with this.
Yeah, and and I really wonder where the churches are in all of this. Where not just the Catholic Church, but all of the churches, because the churches should be standing up, going crazy, saying, don't do this. This isn't.
Well, the church stood up against abortion and birth control even back till about the 30s, and then they started to just lower their guard with everything.
Anglicans were the first ones as a Protestant church to say contraception is okay.
Right.
So then the floodgates.
And then they start lowering their tolerance. They're saying, just go ahead and do it.
Well, there will be a lowering of tolerance with taking other people's lives too.
Mm-hmm. But that's also true right now in the Navajo, with the Navajo health system. Because let's say if you're 70 years old, you've broken your hip, and you're an older woman, and let's say you're single, etc. This has happened. These are personal knowledge of this, and they go down to Albuquerque to get their hip looked at. Can we get a replacement? Oh, you've had a good life. Go home. You've had a good life. They can't afford the health system can't afford for all these bills with those kind of surgeries with people over a certain age. They don't want to pay them. So that's an example of the what's that kind of care? The
palliative.
Not palliative care. Single parent care.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Once there's no option, once there's no other option, you're going to see this snowball. When we have a single payer system, it'll snowball.
Well, don't say when we have a single payer system. Say
and when.
Say we're not going to. We don't want that.
We want to live. Yeah.
We don't want a single payer system of medicine at all. And we have to hope and pray that. And I say pray that the president we have remains in office.
Yes.
Because
he amazing.
You talk about. I just have to share this because Right to Life. We're talking about all life. The upcoming presentation is going to focus more on euthanasia, but But there was a Facebook post, and it said, and it had a picture of Biden and Harris, and a picture above it was of a baby, and it said, "This child is 5 hours old. This infant is 5 hours old. 4 hours earlier, these two voted that this infant could have been murdered in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
They also voted that after this baby was born, it could have been killed if the mother didn't want it."
Fantasy, yeah.
Yes. And so I've been reading some posts from some friends who are Catholic and who believe that abortion is fine under the Catholic Church, and that you should vote for Biden and Harris if you're Catholic, because Biden is Catholic, and
Well, they need to read
he
their
doesn't really
catechism.
believe that.
No,
That's
And-
absolutely
and
false.
so-
Wait.
And so-
You heard what Lou Holt said.
So
Okay.
so I put my post up there, and I said I would not be voting for these two because of the mere fact that Biden is a Catholic who supports abortion and pro-choice, and therefore he's not a Catholic in my book. And any Catholic who thinks it's okay to vote for him is not a Catholic in my book.
They're part and parcel of the problem. You are actually, joining in with what that person. If you vote for a person who does something that's morally wrong, you are actually party to that wrong, complicit. So people do need to think about that, when they vote, and they
about who
need
you're
to
voting
not
for.
look at what the person says, but how they vote, because so many of these people will tell you they're personally pro-life, and if you look at their voting record, it's straight pro-death.
Right, and doesn't Right to Life have or
We do.
have
We
a
put
voting?
information out about the different representatives and how they voted, so that people can make up their own minds. Yes.
So what did Lou Holt say?
Lou Holt said Biden at last week when he was speaking at the Republican National Convention, he said Biden.
Democrat National Convention.
No, Lou Holt was up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At the
Okay.
Republican. Oh, for God's sakes, did he flip on us? Quickly, but he said Biden is Catholic in name only, and the president is giving him now the Medal of Honor. Lou Holtz. Isn't that great?
Very good.
Isn't that great? I mean, come on. Let's hear it.
Yeah,
And as far as morality goes, too, from a moral standpoint, people talk about personal things with the president. To me, morality for a politician is keeping your promises. That's the highest point of morality for a politician. I want to see you keep your promises, and he has kept his promises.
And support the Constitution.
Yes.
So
Every promise has been kept. Okay, we have a few minutes left, and I want to go back over our dinner that's coming up, and the whole event, and how you can participate again.
Okay, this is a virtual event on Friday, September 25th, 2020. It's from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. They'll begin airing about 6:15 with preliminary things. You can do it in the comfort of your own home, and if you feel social and you want to host a little dinner party, Bernadone's restaurant has agreed to help us with that. But you will need to register as a host on our site, and you will need to have your guests already registered as well before you call us at 320-2906. That's area code 505-320-2906. Make sure you've registered first, and you can register at www.SJCRTL, that's San Juan County Right to Life.org. SJCRTL.org.
Now, if you want to go on this and just donate, we
Well, and that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
Usually, when you have these dinners, these events, it is a fundraising opportunity for San Juan Right to Life, and so with this one being a little bit different, the fundraising will be different as well.
It's still a fundraising opportunity, and they're free to donate. It's free. It's going to go statewide. They can send the link to anybody they know, even out of state. It can be international. They can watch this same program with them.
Well, and each person that is hosting a dinner will have a packet. So if you go there, then you can empty out your pockets.
Yeah.
For Right to Life.
And we use that money to help get word out on political things. We like to get we're the ones that put all the banners around town. We provide things for different functions like 40 Days for Life, any pro-life activity, Students for Life.
Southwest Youth.
Yeah, we get behind them. We provide materials for them. Our whole purpose is educating the public on life issues.
Yeah, and it's interesting, how life issues have changed over just in the past decade.
Yes.
When I used to think of Right to Life as the pro-life with babies issues, and now we're looking at euthanasia, which could end up being, like I said, I'm a parent who I don't want to take care of this kid anymore. So instead of turning the child over to the state or finding someone who would love this child and be able to adopt it and take care of it, I'm going to go to a doctor and have them give them medicine to go to sleep.
Or maybe you don't want to take care of grandma anymore.
Yeah.
So you just decide to use it. I mean, this is going to become the new concern.
And the aging of
Right
America.
to Life. Yeah, the aging of America. So.
Yeah, and that's just sad, and I, just the other day I was online teaching my students, and one of my students said, "Miss Mayu, will you stay on afterwards? I want to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And so I stayed on, and this child started crying and said, "My great grandma died this week, and I'm so sad." And I thought, and I said, well, and I talked to this child a little bit about the how lucky it was to have an opportunity to know the great grandma and everything, and I just thought, there's a child that would grow up and take care of a grandmother, but yet we're teaching kids nowadays that that's not cool or
and
not the norm.
So much,
Yes.
But we learn from the history. That's the other thing, I noticed that a lot of these liberal movements just want to get rid of history altogether.
Of course. Well, that's Marxism for you. No history.
Yes.
Speaking of history, it's interesting that the generation that ushered in abortion is going to be ushered out by euthanasia if things keep moving in this direction.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And actually the children who were not the children of this age who could have been aborted but were not are probably going to be the ones who get rid of it, who end up getting rid of abortion, who are more pro-life than ever.
It is a pro-life generation. They look at things a little differently.
And we want to give hope. That's the main thing. We don't have hope. And that's why the depressing scenario is going on. It's so rampant with people, and so therefore let's kill ourselves, go hang ourselves, because we have no hope. We want to instill hope in all generations.
Yes, exactly. Any final words? James, any final words from you?
Well, just pray. This is going to be a great event. Very creative to have it online, Zoom. In the legislature, we have all our meetings on a Zoom meeting, and so we're using that technology to get small groups together. It is a fundraiser. They do good work, and they do educate the public, and I appreciate their efforts.
And if you want to see the documentary, it's on Amazon Prime. It's called Fatal Flaws.
That is his award-winning documentary.
Yes,
so it gives you a taste of what he can produce.
And all over the world.
And it's on Amazon Prime.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
There you
and
go.
I want to thank you for having us.
Yes,
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll have to come back again soon and talk more. It's always great to talk about these issues on the show and get these opinions out there.
Live.
Yeah. Carry around a card that says, I don't support death.
We have
Don't
that.
kill me. I know.
Don't kill me. I have one in my wallet. Do not kill me.
It's really not a laughing matter.
No,
folks.
it isn't, but you have
It's a very serious matter. Thank you so much for listening to Focus on the Four Corners. I'm your host, Deborah Mayu. Join me here each week on KENN. And next week, we're going to be hearing from Echo Food Bank. We're going to hear about what they're doing in the community right now to help folks who might be out there suffering, not able to make ends meet, and not able to get food on the table. So we'll let you know how you can help them out, and also, if you're in need, how you can basically get some food for yourself. So keep on listening to Focus on the Four Corners on KENN.
In anticipation of our